Well, let's shift then from demons. Let's shift from demons to aliens.
Demons to aliens.
I want to know. And for a lot of people, there is no shift there, right?
Right.
But that's part of the discussion. I want to know your thoughts on aliens.
Okay, my thoughts on aliens. So I think it's a complex topic, right? And often people are talking past each other when they discuss these things. But there's not often a lot of good, solid logic applied to the question, right? You'll hear people say things like, how can you have 1 trillion planets out there? And you know, it's pride to think that this is the only planet that has life on it. Like, well, that's not how you do statistics, right? You don't say, well, how many planets are there out there? They must have life. That's not true. They don't have to have life. A good example of this is there are 300 million Americans. I'm the only one who has my Social Security number. You know, out of 300 million Americans, I'm the only one with my Social Security number. So yes, it is possible that this planet is the only one that has life as we know it on it. Now, it's also possible that there is life on other planets. I don't know. There's a lot. First of all, let's take into account there's a lot that we're never going to know. So if you let's take it for granted that the world was created in something like a Big Bang, right? So you have all of this matter moving apart. So if anything moving in this direction is going faster than half the speed of light, and anything moving in this direction is going faster than half the speed of light, this side will never see that side. So things on the other side of that Big Bang we'll never see. We'll only see a very small sliver, and that sliver keeps getting smaller and smaller, right? As things are spreading through the universe, the observable universe keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So unless we know some kind of way to travel faster than light, and we don't, right? We have not figured out how to do it. Unless you're talking about maybe like bending space and time, you'd need the power of a sun to be able to do it. And anybody in the middle of that kind of transition, it probably wouldn't be good for them physically, right? So there's the visible, observable world is getting smaller and smaller. We're getting farther and farther away from other things, right? Okay, so there's that thing to take into account. Then you have to take into account of what we can see and all that. How many of those planets could support life as we know it, right? Life as we know it meaning carbon-based, liquid water, that sort of thing, right? Well, there's a whole lot fewer of those planets. And so now you're not saying, well, but a fraction of a million is still a good number. But it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, because not only does it have to have water, you've got to not be have your atmosphere stripped from you by solar winds and all these things. You need an atmosphere. You probably need something that's going to keep the radiation that's out there from completely destroying your planet. It probably needs to spin so that you don't have one side completely cooked by the heat of the sun and the other side totally frozen. You have all of these different conditions that it is very, I think, better than 50% chance that this is the only planet that we'll ever be able to see that has the kind of conditions that would be absolutely necessary for life to even make it on the planet. Then you have questions about, well, how would life even begin? Because if you talk to a geologist about what the Earth has looked like over its lifespan, the Earth has not looked like the kind of place that life could spontaneously come into being, right? We don't even know how life could spontaneously come into being. Like, we can throw all the right chemicals into a soup and mix it up, but it just doesn't seem to work. We can't reproduce that. So, was it just by chance that we have life? Maybe it was, but that it happened by chance on all these other planets. It just keeps getting a smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller chance, to the point where I think the chances are actually bad that we would have life anywhere within our observable universe except for here. Then you have questions of, well, on this planet, how many different species of animals have ever said, I'd like to go to some other planet, right? So far, it's just us. Far, it's just us. We have lots of animals that are bipedal. We have lots of animals that have eyes that can sense light and ears that can deal with sound, and we have all kinds of different sort of mechanisms that keep life going, that seem to have evolved multiple times over, right? But the desire to go anywhere but this planet seems to only be us. Okay, now, what's the odds that on one of these other planets that might have life and they have the desire to go somewhere else, that they are like made of meat and got into a spaceship and traveled here, instead of did what we do, which is build a robotic probe that can go somewhere else. Like, it seems to me the first kind of aliens we're ever going to run into, if we ever going to run into aliens, will be robots. Because robots can survive in outer space for a long, long time. They don't go through life cycles. They don't go through all that. Robots could potentially make it from some other planet to this one. But that's not what people say they see with all the UAPs, right? The unidentifiable area phenomenon, whatever, you know. It looks too much like us. It's some kind of meaty animal that's in a metallic vehicle that kind of behaves the way our jet airplanes act, right? So it's much better. They maneuver, they do all these different things. But like, as soon as our jets chase one of them down and fire upon it, it seems to fire back, or it runs away, or it acts a lot of the ways that you would think we would act if we were to do this, which seems to me like, you know, there are way too many other things that ought to happen first, right? So where are the big space spiders? Like, where are they? You know, like, instead it's little gray tiny men with big eyes that just look a lot like us. And I think that the odds of other planets having life that look so much like us and act so much like us, but somehow found a way to come to this planet, and they're playing cat and mouse the whole time. So they get here and all they do is play cat and mouse, and all we have is blurry pictures. Like, in the end, I just think there are too many other explanations for what people are seeing. I'm sorry to be disappointing like that. You know,
no, this is
as a
great.
Jesuit, of course, I'm going to say there's no aliens, but I think there's no aliens, right? Or at least we haven't seen them. We haven't seen any aliens. I think the Fermi paradox is a very important thing to look at. Like, there should be much older civilizations having made their way out here, and they just haven't. No, we have no sign of them that we can really point to, except for very recently, a bunch of difficult to describe phenomena. You know.
Well, speaking of these phenomena that are pretty difficult to describe, one of them is the Tic Tac video. Have you seen this?
I've seen some videos now. They say that by the time they get to us, they've been blurred and they've been everything else. But it's when you're looking at a Tic Tac, it's real hard to say, these are extraterrestrial aliens. Yeah,
Sure. But you do have multiple people who are eyewitnesses to these things, and they describe what they saw, and it's corroborated by the video footage, and they say, look, there's just nothing that we have that can do this kind of stuff. What do you think about that?
I think that that's a very clear, truthful thing to say, is we're seeing some things we don't understand. I just think that to conclude that these are aliens from another planet, given all of the conditions that would have to be true for this to be an alien from another planet. I mean, I'm talking about like something like a Martian, right, in the classic sense. Now, could it be a lot of other things that are just as interesting to think about, that are just as wild to think about? Maybe so.
Give me an example.
Could this be some piece of tech that some military has put together that is completely odd? Could this be some different way of manipulating our instruments, or manipulating, what we think we see when we look out there? Could this be? I hate to say a government conspiracy, because I don't want to believe in government conspiracies. But here's the thing: we know that our government has done those sorts of things before, right? They have absolutely gaslighted people to the point of driving them crazy. I mean, Jimmy Akin has done some videos on the way that our government has done these sorts of things, and I think that our government would consider it an advantage to have something like that in their back pocket, to be able to say, look, if we can have everybody believe that maybe it's aliens, anytime we get caught doing something, we can always say, maybe it's aliens, and people will be more likely to believe it if they already think that it's possible, But of course it's possible, I just think it's very unlikely.
But if we or some other government has this kind of high tech, why hasn't that government taken over the world? Because it would seem that whatever these vehicles are, you could just drop in, and they're coming in from outer space. You could just drop in anywhere in the world, do your business, and get out before anybody knows.
Well, it seems to me as though our government plays around a lot with things to make sure that it works to our advantage.
You recently had a conversation with a very important person in this area when it comes to observing the heavens, if you will.
Sure.
Are you able to talk about this?
Yeah, I mean, I had a long conversation with someone who works in the Vatican Observatory. We talked for about 2.5 hours, and my first question was, okay, aliens, real or not real? And a lot of what I said earlier is built around that conversation, right? It's like, of course, it's possible that there's something like the life as we know it on some other planet. Of course, it's possible, but in the end, we're not asking, is it possible to have life somewhere else? We're asking ourselves, are we looking at little beings piloting some metallic ship through space, acting kind of behaving the way we would behave? That just becomes less and less likely. And not that this man was a complete expert in anything, but he does spend a lot of his time observing what's out there, and he didn't come away any more convinced that we're being visited by aliens from other planets in spaceships.
So he's never seen anything.
No, he's never seen anything that would make him think that we're being visited by
and he professionally observes the heavens.
And he professionally looks out there. Now, what do you say about all those guys who are flying jets and who have seen multiple things like that? I mean, I'm not denying that they saw something that made them say, I cannot identify what I just saw. It's the leap to, it's an alien piloting a ship that I can't go for, right? That's the leap I cannot go for.
Now, when you say you can't go for it, is that just practically, or do you think that this would be contrary to divine revelation and the Catholic faith?
To quote John Paul II, they are all God's children, right? Listen, there are some very interesting questions about that. Like, what would make a being worthy of baptism or in need of baptism, right? And I think that you'd have to be one of us to be baptized, right? So let's say you find, because there's all kinds of ways of being intelligent, right? So I mentioned, space spiders, right? Space alien spiders out there. Spiders can engineer webs better than I can, right? They can figure some things out. They are more intelligent than I am in some specialized ways, right? So yeah, it's possible that aliens from some very far away place have come here, but the idea that they'd be just like us and that they would even be interested in talking about these things, or that they would be in need of salvation, those are all some pretty big leaps, right? So I'm of the opinion that it would only be those who are like us, those who are sons and daughters of Adam and Eve that would stand in need of salvation and would even have those kinds of religious questions. We have a whole lot of other life forms here on earth that have no business they're not thinking about religion. They're looking down at the food in front of them. They're looking, to where they can go hide from some other threat to them. So I think that religiously speaking, it's an even bigger leap to believe that we would encounter the kinds of beings that would be thinking the kinds of things that make us think about God.
Just hypothetically, let's say they're aliens and they show up to Earth and they proclaim to the entire world their existence, and they say, and look, we created the world. We've been observing y'all, and y'all think that there's this God being out there, and some of y'all are Christians. No, we're going to set the record straight. We're the ones who created the world. We created all you humans. What would you do at that point? Are you going to say, okay, I'm going to rethink the Christian faith? Or are you going to say, no, this is demonic, this is demons, this is...
Well, yeah, so I guess that you're kind of setting out a few pathways of thought, right? One of them would be, this is a deception. This is all a great big plan from the evil one to knock us off our track towards becoming, the kind of people that God made us to be in the beginning. And this is just some deception from the evil one, right? Okay, that's one possibility, and it ought to be investigated. Another would be is just to ask the same question that we ask right now. All you've done is kick the can up the road. Who created you? Who created the world? Our belief in God is not that he is like a super powerful alien out there in outer space. Our belief in God is that God is a different kind of thing altogether. In fact, he, that existence, we can go into all this Thomism stuff, right? But our belief in God is not just like Thor by another name, right? Or Vishnu by another name. It's something else completely. Our God is something else, and it's the uncaused causer. So unless these aliens show up and they say we're uncaused, which I'd have a hard time understanding how that could work. Of course, that would have to be investigated and all that. I mean, I don't want to be like so close-minded to think that there wouldn't be some things that we would have to think about if we were ever face-to-face with some beings who said, your religion is baloney, right?
Yeah.
We would have to think about some things.
Yeah.
But I also know there's some things that that scenario wouldn't change what I believe about the God who created the universe.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And, there's a lot of people who think that what's going to happen as far as an end times deception is that you're going to have these alien beings who come around, and they're going to proclaim themselves to be the creators of the world, and this is going to be the end time deception of the Antichrist, and so they kind of tie it into eschatology. And what are your thoughts there about end time deception? Do you see a scenario like that happening, or do you think people are way out there?
Again, I don't know, right? I don't know. But it seems to me that there are some very deceptive things already out there right in front of us. There's already, atheistic materialism. There's already, even amongst real believers, true believers that have adopted some kind of, I know the word modernist gets thrown around a lot, but there are some modernist beliefs that are just as hostile to the truth as any other weird scenario where somebody pops up and gives us a different account for the history of the world or whatever. The Great Deception. I mean, wake up, you're being deceived right now, right? Turn on your television and you are being deceived every second of every flicker on that television. Something's coming through that isn't part of the gospel proclamation, right? So I certainly don't think, it sounds like a lot of hard work for the devil to have to do when he's already winning in much more conventional ways, right? He's already finding, I say winning, he's winning battles here and there. He's already winning battles here and there through much more conventional ways. So,
what do you say though to the people who always resort to the claim that it's all demons? So all these UAP, it's really just demons. What do you think about people who just automatically make a beeline to that explanation?
It's complicated, right? It's complicated. Again, I think that when we talk about these unseen things, all of the unseen things, I mean, what we actually see, it's a pretty small set of things, right? We're seeing light bounce off of physical objects, and we're filling in the gaps for a whole lot of stuff that we don't see. And the way we fill in those gaps can either be right-minded or wrong-minded. And I think that there are a whole lot of wrong-minded ways to see the world. And a whole lot of ways to be misled, and ways to think of the world that are very damaging to they're harmful to the truth, hostile to the truth. I think that this is where, when we talk about angels and demons, this is the evil spirit, right? This is where this all happens, where I don't need to take those extra steps and say that also that demons are also flying what looks like a tic-tac in the sky. I don't see that seems like what a waste of resources for the evil spirit. There are too many conventional ways, right? Too many conventional ways that we fall into daily. I sin daily, right? So this is a real thing. That's where the demons are.
Hey, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next part of this interview, or go ahead and get access to the entire full-length video by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Reason and Theology. You'll be supporting my channel so I can continue to do what I'm doing, and you'll get early access to the entire video. And don't forget, hit the like button and the subscribe button. See you later. God bless.